If ever your life could be a true crime podcast episode, then this podcast is for you. We're about to embark on a roller coaster of emotions, insights, survival, and stories about escape. So buckle up and let the journey begin.
Welcome into the Escape Pod.
Hi, Julie.
On a Wednesday, which is unusual for us. It was good timing midweek this week.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if our brains can catch up.
I mean, I'm not going to know what day tomorrow is because
No.
I did this today, but it's fine.
It's okay.
We'll be all right.
Yeah.
What are you escaping from this week?
This stupid sweater. Okay, so I'm wearing this sweater, and it normally has like this faux fur collar.
Mm-hmm.
It's a longer cardigan. It's really cute, gray. And I took the collar off today because I thought it was the collar that always left. And I mean, I have washed it, and like you should see the stuff that comes off of it.
Oh,
Even
I
washing
bet.
a delicate, it's crazy. Like I don't even know how it could not be threadbare at this point, how much buzz I've lost off of it. So I've been leaving a little fairy trail of fluff everywhere I go today.
Everyone knows you've been there.
So I go to my chiropractor, and as I open my car door to get into the car to drive, there's like a dervish of fluff in my car. I'm like, are you kidding me? So this sweater's got to go. So
Really?
I'm escaping the sweater today.
But it's so cute. Not worth it?
And it's also making me itch. Like it's a whole thing.
See, that
So-
would be the itching.
And then if I
couldn't
wear
do.
sleeves under it, I mean, look at my tank top.
Yeah.
It's covered.
So then sleeves are covered.
I keep going into because we have like a jet engine hand dryer in our bathroom.
We do.
And I'll get under there and have it blow off all the fuzz. I've done that several times today, and it just keeps coming.
The buildings and grounds people are going to think
gonna
we
hate
had
me.
like a cat roaming the building.
gonna be like-
shedding everywhere.
Dust bunnies on steroids. So that's what I'm trying to run away from today.
Well, update on what I thought I escaped last week.
Uh-oh.
I did not, in fact, escape the stomach
Oh.
bug that was going through my house.
Did you get it?
12:30 a.m. Sunday morning.
Oh,
Sick on and off for 3 hours straight in the middle of the night. And then slept. Fortunately, had nothing on the calendar,
I feel
nothing
like if
to
you're
do
gonna
on
have
Sunday.
kids and they get sick, moms should be immune.
That would
I
be
think that should be
fair.
part of our mother contract.
Yeah. But I'm like, this is the universe telling me, don't get cocky about not getting the stomach bug because bam.
As she's dancing in the halls, like, I avoided it. No, not really.
It was the strangest
I
thing. But
have
then
seen her dance in the halls, but not that time.
when I looked back, I thought, well, the first one got it. And 3 days later, my husband got sick. And then 3 days after that, my other son got sick. And then 3 days after.
Well, fortunately,
so it was
it
about
wasn't
4
all of you
days.
at the same time.
No, it was
'cause
not.
That's really hard when
Yes.
you are like, you feel obligated to take care of people and you can't even take care of yourself.
Yeah.
It's always really hard.
Nope. And it was like the middle of the night. And I did manage to take care of myself as best I could in the moment. And then I didn't have anything to do on Sunday. So the beauty of the whole thing was that by the time Monday morning rolled around, I actually felt fine.
So it moved quickly at least. That's
But
good.
I bet I slept for like 18 of that 24 hours.
I would love to go do that right now.
All right, be careful what you wish for.
Well, let me back that. I just asleep.
Yeah,
18 hours.
no, I know what you mean, but it's messed up my sleep schedule for the rest of this week. Because now at night I'm like awake because that night, so Monday night, I couldn't fall asleep because I had slept so much like the day
I think
before.
that's truer the older we get too.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's like I need like 6 hours and beyond, if I do more than 6 hours, it like messes up other things. It's strange. I probably should. I'm sure if I got in the habit of doing like an actual 7 or 8, it'd probably be really good. But at this point, it's like, no, it just kind of messes with me. Like I'll usually, if I am tired, I will go to bed and fall asleep. Lately, I'm either not tired at all or I am tired and I'm just not sleeping. So like that's been the last 3 nights, basically.
So
it's
maybe
bizarre.
this weekend you can.
I hope so, but but I was kicking myself for being like, I escaped the stomach bug. No, she did not, ladies and gentlemen.
Well,
She
now you did.
not. Now it's thank God.
It's passed.
Right. Yeah, and it was short-lived, and so it could have been way, way, way worse, and
Yes,
it could have
that's the
fallen on a
one-
terrible day. Like,
One of the good things about being an empty nester is
You don't have a carrier
Nobody's
monkey?
bringing. Yeah. No carrier monkeys in my house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually sometimes surprised. I mean, we've been pretty lucky. Like our kids are not especially sickly kids, but when they are, it's a doozy. So anyway, all right. There's our escapism co-host style. What do you have for me today? I think it's a little bit of a serious topic to start with.
It's a serious topic. And so, disclaimer, this is about religion.
Okay.
My personal experiences as a child that have kind of shaped my views on things. So these are mine. You don't have to share my opinion, but these are based on my experience. So if anyone feels like arguing with me, just don't, because these are mine. These are mine. I'm not generalizing that this is what it's like for everybody, or I'm not making generalizations about, in this case, the Pentecostal church or anything like this. These were my experiences. So I'm just going to say that up front. And then in tandem with that, I have a story, in my working title here was Sex Crazed Pentecostal Pastor, and it's pretty wild. So, so kind of two stories that go together. They're a little shorter, but I just thought they would work well together. So, which one do you want first?
Let's get the weird pastor out of the way, shall we?
Weird pastor? Okay.
Sure.
All right.
That's a technical term. Weird.
So this was in Knutby, Philadelphia, Sweden in 2003 to 2004. So I am not from Sweden. I'm going to do my best on these names. We've got a Sarah Svensson, we have a Helga Fossimo, and an Alexandra Fossimo. So
I want you to tell the whole story with a Swedish accent.
I don't even know how to do. I'm not good at
Just
accents.
kidding. Don't. But it would be kind of fun.
I can do it if like I've just heard it, and then I can keep going. But just to like cold go.
Side note: my oldest child is really good at accents.
Really,
and he is a bit dramatic about silly things. Like, I'm trying to think of what it was the other day. I was like, "Let it go." But I do think, given
Disney
some,
I've never seen the movie, but
yeah,
I've heard enough people saying that.
Yeah. So he could probably.
Interesting.
I'll have to throw that out there. Hey, how about
he's fun to bring to parties.
Pretend you're Swedish for 5 minutes? Let's see how it goes. Sorry. Oh, well, go on.
Like I said, and this guy that I'm going to talk about is not the only famous Pentecostal psychopath. Jim Jones of Jonestown.
Right, yeah.
Also Pentecostal. I mean, and he had some charisma.
Right.
I mean, over 300 people drank the Kool-Aid. So, I mean, he's definitely had some pull. So Helga Fossimo, born July 27th, 1971, became a born-again Christian by the time he was 12 years old. And he was 17 years old when he met a girl who would later become his wife, and her name was Helena Johansson. In 1989, he joined the Pentecostal church where his wife attended, and he eventually became a youth pastor. Okay? You're already making faces.
Knowing what the topic of this is and that we're a true crime podcast.
Oh, yes, I suppose. I'm saying sex-crazed pastor and now youth pastor. Hold that thought. Okay. So he meets a woman in 1993 named Asa Waldo, who was also a pastor who claimed to be the bride of Christ.
Oh.
Personified. Like she was.
Interesting.
I mean, so much for humility. She even bought a gold ring with 7 diamonds and later went through a ceremony where she was married to Jesus. So, I mean, she was it.
Okay.
She was it. And the Fossimos and their first 2 children moved to Knutby in 1997 to live right next door to this woman. And so Helga reportedly spent much of his time with her, like kind of a disciple, kind of a, follower, really put her on a pedestal.
Okay.
And she encouraged that. So remember that marriage ceremony I just talked about, that was March 29th of 1999. And this guy, Helge, was the only witness. So he was really important in her inner circle. So I'm sure with his belief system and, he's probably feeling like he's pretty special because, I mean, he's got an in with the bride of Christ, right? Mm-hmm. Pretty big deal. So
huge.
He says later in court that he had to mediate Jesus to her by satisfying her sexually with his hands.
Oh.
Because, Jesus can't do that. That's how crazy this one gets.
I'm horrified already.
Yeah, you should be horrified. This is batshit. Okay. So there's just no other word sometimes.
Technical term.
So the Bride of Christ denies this, that he ever satisfied her sexually, but be that as it may, he stuck to his guns on that one. And then mysteriously, in December of 1999, his wife, Helena, was found dead in a bathtub.
Ooh, okay.
Okay, so there was a hole in her skull and a lethal dose of dextropropoxyphene, which is a painkiller in kind of the opioid family.
Okay.
It was found in her blood, but for whatever reason, her death was ruled an accident. Again, I don't know Swedish law. I'm not going to pretend to. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but it was ruled accidental.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So just a few short months later, he remarries, and this time to a woman by the name of Alexandra Waldo, which was Asa's younger sister. So the Bride of Christ's younger sister.
Okay.
Okay. So now he's part of the family.
Mm-hmm.
So now he really has an end. Then in June 2001, he mysteriously falls ill, allegedly believing the devil was attacking his soul, as the devil does. So they move a young woman into the house by the name of Sarah Svensson, in fact, into his bedroom to nurse him back to health because he was really, really sick and they were very concerned about him. So they gave him round-the-clock care. And she, from what I could glean from all of the information on this case, some of which was quite contradictory, so I kind of averaged it out and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was the only one he believed who could help him stave off what he dubbed his uncontrollable fits with whatever illness this was.
Mm.
And her superpower by staving off these uncontrollable fits was fighting off the devil with sex.
Okay.
And he convinced her that this was his medicine. So all while his wife had taken to sleeping in the guest bedroom so that he could be cared for by this young girl. So Sarah starts out as his personal nurse, but because she had this super anti-devil sex power, he kept devising ways to keep her on the payroll, so to speak, keep her in the home, so to speak. And so eventually she became the children's nanny because now he's not sick and he still wants to have access to her because, I mean, she has some mad superpowers, right? So, I mean, hey.
So many things.
I'd love to see a Marvel movie made of this one. Come on.
No.
Come on. All right.
Hard pass.
All right. So they were deeply religious, and when Sarah would express her concerns over the infidelity, Helga just convinced her that their affair wasn't a sin because it was heavenly love. Yeah, it's very cringy.
Okay.
So later, Sarah says that she was his sex slave. So I guess he wasn't that ill.
Right.
And he probably saw an in and just kept, taking what he could get. Each night we were winning a victory for God's will through sexual intercourse, Sarah later claimed to have believed. This is what he had her convinced. So she was very susceptible, very,
We are not reading the same Bible, me and these people.
Well, after I tell you my Pentecostal experiences, I could believe that. I could absolutely believe that. So about a year into this arrangement, so Helga and Alexandra are in the home. They're in separate bedrooms. Sarah is now the nanny, sleeping in this woman's husband's bedroom. Okay. They finally divorce. And because the Bride of Christ didn't agree with Helga's relationship with the live-in nurse, Sarah was shunned. Not Helga. Sarah was shunned.
Yeah.
And disciplined by the church. And because the Pentecostal congregation blamed Sarah for the affair and kept her isolated from other church members, I mean, she was easy prey. She had nobody looking out for her and was incredibly vulnerable.
So the church has how many people? Do you have any idea?
I did. I can't remember if it's later in my notes because I wrote these quite a while ago.
But it went beyond kind of just these few people.
Yes.
Because sometimes the cult is
it was like
a house
public
full of
shaming.
people.
I mean, it was.
Oh, okay.
I'm not, and I don't know if it was like thousands of people or hundreds of
Right.
people, but I mean, it was. Yeah, she was being ousted by everybody,
Okay.
and he had her convinced that he was the only one who loved her. So now he's got a new angle. He's going to protect her. He's the only one who loves her because, he still needed her sex magic, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward a few years to January 2004, Alexandra, now his ex-wife's neighbor and employer, Daniel Linde, was shot in the chest and head around 4:40 a.m.
Wow.
rushed to the hospital by a good Samaritan by the name of Helga Fossmo, who just happened to come upon the scene. Clearly divine intervention. It's like he knew it was going to happen. It's so weird. Okay. 2 hours later, it was discovered that Alexandra had been fatally shot while she was sleeping in her bed the same night. And here's where it gets really interesting, if you weren't already intrigued. So after the murder and the attempted murder are uncovered, Sarah confesses, claiming that she was acting under the control of Helga, with whom she was still having an affair.
Okay.
Shock. And it turns out that Helga was the horn dog who was also having an affair with his wife's employer's wife.
Oh, my.
Annette Linde. So the guy that gets shot, the sex-crazed pastor's banging the employer's wife. Okay, so he must have been pretty charismatic, because do I have a picture? Don't have a picture. He was the dopiest putz you've ever seen. So charisma is a thing. And I
was going to say.
I mean, that's its own sex magic, right? But when you just see a picture, you're like, nah, it's not. He's not doing it for me. Kind of doughy, pasty, weak-chinned. I mean, I'm sure that brings to mind a fun picture.
I am thinking, like, what could he say to somebody to win them over? I mean, it has to be, there's something.
Bride of Christ's brother-in-law. Maybe
but that's not gonna.
No? Okay.
It's not gonna do it for me personally.
No, I mean, if somebody said that to me in a bar.
I know, right? Wouldn't you be like, oh, we have a.
Well, I think
somebody who needs
full body
visit.
chills, and I would start backing up and probably throw up in my mouth a little bit, or a lot.
I mean, I had somebody call the TV station once. So this was many years ago. And when she first started talking, you felt like this was a legitimate call, a viewer with a concern. She wants to give you a news tip. And then as she continued to talk, it was increasingly clear that this person had some kind of mental health disorder. And she called several times, and it was so interesting because everybody who took her call would say, the lady you talked to, did she start out like normal? And I was like, yeah, for like 5 minutes. And then once she went off, and just as an example, I mean, she thought there were bugs under her skin.
Oh.
And it was sad. It wasn't funny. But you didn't know what to say. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, mental health qualified professional.
Probably totally alone and sees you on TV and is like,
exactly.
Let me reach out because I know her.
And
She's my
she
friend.
even said, and this was actually the saddest part, she would say, I go to doctors and they tell me it's all in my head. And I'm sure they didn't say it like that,
right.
but that it's psychological. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I mean, probably, So that was the hard part. But when you talk about, like, if somebody came up to you and said this, what you would think, and it's like, oh, I actually have had some, like, kind of that, and it started out making sense, and then it like took a left turn like no other.
It just dawned on me we could do a fun episode. Now fun,
unquote.
But like of our experiences in the public eye, like things people say to you and how they
my
talk
gosh.
to you. It might be a two-parter.
I think I've blocked a lot of them out.
Well, you started talking, and I have this one guy in my head. He has since passed away out in the community, but just total pervert. But he'd do it in a way where he was like, he wasn't a threat, but it was still inappropriate.
Yep.
Anyway.
I probably had more of those than I didn't feel unsafe, but it was like, okay, this gotta let this go. Yeah. All right. Sorry. Go on.
Oh, no worries.
That was a rabbit hole.
All right. Weak, pasty chin. Weak chin,
Back
pasty,
to that.
doughy, very, very hubba. Okay. So according to Sarah, she started receiving anonymous text messages telling her to kill Alexandra and Daniel, or she would not get mercy from God due to her part in their affair.
Okay.
And she's so vulnerable. And now her brain has just been completely rearranged and is being controlled by this sex-crazed idiot, right? So she received one text that read, "There is a time for killing," and she believed that if she did this, it would prove she wanted to belong to God. "I had no will of my own," she alleged. During almost all of 2003, I was locked away because I was so incorrigible. God had turned his back on me, and I sought mercy. So this kind of gives you some insight into where her frame of mind, and she was so young, and it's just crazy. Anyway, investigators later learned that the messages had come from, oh, you got it. You figured it out. It's so weird. Okay. Came from Helga, who probably just wanted to kill two loose ends with one murderer, get both the ex-wife and the husband of one of his lovers out of the way. And so his involvement in the murder of his second wife led police to re-examine his first wife's death, fortunately. And it was determined that the injury to her head could not have been caused by a fall, as they had said.
Right.
So Sarah Svensson was released from institutional psychiatric care in December of 2011 at 34 years old with no restrictions, so she could go and live her life. And the court seemed to think that the chance of her reoffending is minimal due to the fact that she no longer suffers from the very serious psychological problems that she did in 2004 when she was such easy prey to this man. He was sentenced to life in prison for soliciting the murder of his second wife, Alexandra, and the attempted murder of his neighbor, Daniel Lindy. But he was never convicted of murdering his first wife.
Oh.
So, but when you boil this down, I mean, I was asking the question when I was going through this, like, does he really believe the teachings of the church, or does he go along and use them to his benefit? And I feel like it's more of the latter.
Yeah. I think that's it's a good question. That's a very good question, because you could say it's somebody who's lost it themselves and they just happen to find somebody else who is vulnerable and easy prey. And then, we've come full circle. But yeah, I mean, we know that in a lot of cases, if you want to be a predator, you put yourself in a place that makes being a predator easier.
Easy, yeah.
So that
but you
could
think
very
about
much be
just
the case.
how, I mean, there's got to be a special place in hell. But for somebody who is that young and vulnerable and so devout,
right,
that that's a whole nother level of mind game. It's the same as like when a clinical psychologist or a counselor or somebody preys upon someone they're working with, and
I would say
there are cases of that, but I mean, it's just, you're in their heads, you're in their souls, you're in, you have access to their, what makes them who they are. And then to start to chip away at that is just really, really a special kind of horrible.
I would argue it's worse in that, so I'm devout in my faith. I'm Catholic. Practicing Catholic, have been since cradle. But faith is such a personal thing for people that's where it's, to me, I put it on the spectrum worse than even somebody in a mental health professional. Now, a mental health professional might say, nope, they're the same. I think of the ones I know who take their ethics incredibly seriously, and would never dream of such a thing. But I just think faith is such a personal thing that does actually make it, like, you're preying on the innermost
It's
being
horrible
of
no
somebody.
matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that shitbag is in jail. So,
are you ready to tell your tale?
I am.
Or tales, I guess. I don't know how many there are.
Well, we'll see. Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
So I had a direct experience with this for a couple of years.
Age?
I was probably 6.5 when this started.
Ooh, little.
Oh, I was young. Yeah. So in my formative years, I went from being born in the United States and then moving to a Muslim country at 4.5 years old. I lived there for 2 years and then came back to the States at about 6.5. And I got sucked into a Pentecostal congregation.
Okay.
So it was a wild ride when it came to religion because I saw all sorts of different things and experienced different beliefs.
Sure.
And the one thing I knew is that I was in a household that didn't have a belief system.
Okay.
Well, unless drugs are the altar of belief or whatever. But that's where my parents' focus was.
Yeah.
And so I was always seeking. So I'm young, and I decided to go to a church on my own, possibly to escape some of the things I was being subjected to at home.
Sure.
With me, for the horrible person, even at that age, I was convinced I was. And so there was a bus that would come to our apartment complex, and it was a bus commandeered or probably owned by one of the Pentecostal churches. This was down in Louisiana, so Pentecostal churches are very, very prevalent down there. And so they'd come, pick me up, and pick up a bunch of kids from the apartment complex. And it was fun. It was like, we'd sing songs on the bus, and usually there were snacks. I mean, it was like great.
Yeah.
And we go to church, go to Sunday school. It was just, I thought it was awesome. I thought I was like on to really good things. In this particular church, I don't remember the actual name of it, but I can see the campus clear as day. Huge campus, like even larger than our 4-acre campus. It was a massive complex.
So like a mega church before mega churches were a big thing?
Yep. Dripping in red carpet, gold accents, like just very wealthy, a lot of money, a lot of people. I mean, there was a whole building. Imagine our towers.
Okay.
That was nothing but Sunday school classes.
Oh, wow.
It was huge.
Okay.
Huge, huge, huge. So I started going to this, and, that would be kind of my outlet on the weekends, and it would be almost the majority of a Sunday type of a thing.
Did your parents know you were going?
Of course they knew.
Okay.
They didn't give a shit.
Okay.
I mean, and what was it like at Sunday school today? I mean, they never asked, they never cared. And if I was expressing to them when things started taking a turn, like how unsafe I felt, they were never going to intervene. That's just not where they were at in their headspace as parents who were way too young to be parents, kind of a thing. So by the time I was about 7.5 years old or so, they had me convinced that I was a heathen and headed for eternal damnation. My parents didn't go to church, so that was strike one. I could not make my parents go to church. And they, instead of being like, well, good on you, Charity,
right.
God has a plan for you. This is going to be great. You don't have to worry about your parents. We've got you. Nope. I would get flack for that. Did I wear skirts and dresses the appropriate length? Nope. They were below my knees, but they weren't down to my ankles.
Okay.
So strike 2. Had I received the Holy Ghost? Nope. Strike 3. So did I stay silent like a good little girl and keep my questions to myself? Hell no. So let's burn her at the stake is pretty much where I went wrong. And I mean, I'm very inquisitive and very scientific in my thinking. And so I've always been that way. So I just had questions. So anyway, Charlie would come pick us up at our apartment. And I think about that now, like, it's kind of predatory behavior. Kids who are unaccompanied, that little, and he's never met my parents. There was not an exchange. So like,
it was a different time.
This
would have been in the
different
70s.
Time. This would have been, in the later 70s. But still, I would hope that's not going to fly in today's age. But that's what happened.
Right.
And I didn't know if like their numbers were low, they needed a boost, and they were just going to go like harvest young people. But he was super fun, and like I said, it was just fun on the bus. It was a nice escape for me.
Yeah.
So I remember even like one Easter, he gave the kids on the bus, if they wanted them, like little white rabbits, like live rabbits.
Oh my gosh! Don't ever tell this story to my children.
Well, I was so excited because we had a dog, but
it would have been yours.
It would have been mine. So I took him home and I hid him from my parents, knowing my dad would flip his lid and when he found out, and he did. And he did. And he took my rabbit. I never saw it again. So not like, okay, well, let's do this right. My child really wants to take care of something. This could be a really good learning lesson and, whatever. No, he took the rabbit to a rabbit farm. And I just remember.
Going back to Charlie, though, why are you giving away live animals to children who aren't yours?
No, this is what they did. They could buy your allegiance, right? And it was effective for quite a while. So, all right. So, again, that was losing the rabbit was probably the least of my trauma during these years. So I started to dread Sunday school because the school marms there in their long plain skirts and their, tight hair buns and non-dressed up faces probably dreaded me just as much because, we'd learn the books of the Bible, important life lessons, and I would start to ask questions, and they did not like it. My mom did buy me some like secondhand skirts that I could wear to church. Like I said, they were knee length or a little below, but I might as well been flashing my hoo-ha for all the attention it got me when I went to church. It was just inappropriate. And I wasn't raised that way. So instead of like telling me and helping me understand,
like, hey, when we come to church, we wear skirts to the floor.
Exactly. But, instead of explaining it to me in a compassionate way, they were very cruel. They made me feel like I was trying to get male attention, which did happen later in my life. Make me feel like a total slut, which did happen to me later in life, right? But the treatment became more abusive. And then every time a revival would happen, I would get on that stage because they make you come up and it's this whole thing. And I would just pray for God to make these creepy, mean adults leave me alone. And I was alone. I didn't have friends and I had no parents. So I was literally unaccompanied going through the sea and a world that I had sink or swim, baby. This is how I lived my life. So they just left me there. They were not protecting me and the church members weren't protecting me or looking out for me. So I really did feel completely alone and isolated. And it finally, so a couple of years of this and all culminated in a massive revival. So that day at Sunday school, I still can't, you're not going to believe this story. You're going to think I'm making it up because this doesn't happen, but this is exactly what happened. So that day at Sunday school, an adult or two came and pulled me, just me, out of Sunday school, out of class. They walked me across the compound, the complex, and brought me into a very fancy temple where across the way, like several, I maybe halfway down the pews, there were two adults holding a little blonde-haired boy who was probably about 5 or so, a little younger than me. They were each holding one of his arms and they were facing me. And on cue, I'm walked in being escorted by these adults and he starts, shaking around and presumably speaking in tongues, like convulsing, shaking.
Okay.
But for all I knew, these adults were holding him by the arms and shaking the hell out of this kid.
Right. Yeah.
And so it sounds like he's choking. He's speaking gibberish. I'm scared shitless.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. Are they holding him so he's safe from like falling down and knocking his head on the pew or what? I just know that it was like, I'm trying to figure this out, like what is going on? And one of the adults accompanying me said, this is what you need to do. You need to receive the Holy Spirit. And I'm like, even at that age, I'm thinking, how do I control?
Yeah.
How do I control that? When or if,
Well, and who wants that to be what receiving the Holy Spirit feels like?
I know. So I just, but they just kept, no matter what, every turn further drove home the point that I was unworthy and I was just headed for full-on damnation, right? So then that night, so this happened that day. Night is a big, massive revival. The stage, the music, thousands of people, huge, huge, huge. And now they're all speaking in tongues and laying on hands, and it's crazy. Each row, is kind of ushered in turn to go instead of like receive communion. You go on stage and they touch you and it's this whole thing. And to me, my opinions was that it was a show because I'm looking around thinking there is no way 100% of the people in this place are all having an organic, legitimate experience. Peer pressure is a very real thing.
Yeah.
And there have to be people in this space that are going along to get along. So even at that young, I'm like not buying the bullshit. I'm just not.
Interesting.
And
You're
so
like, I'm on to you, people.
I'm forced up on stage and I'm like second grade, unaccompanied kid. I'm literally by myself. They lay hands on, they do all this stuff. And that's when I just finally said, God, you have to get me away from these people. And it happened. That was the last time I attended a Pentecostal church. It was just like I was done. And because my parents weren't making me go, it was no big deal. And I said, nah, I'm good. And then but I wasn't ready to give up on religion yet. So then I started going to a Southern Baptist church, and that's a whole nother story. So, but that was my experience with the Pentecostal church. And so it definitely left a bad taste in my mouth. And I'm thinking like, to me, I raised my kids to be, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to be curious about things. It's okay to question the things you're being told and accept or reject because nobody's got it all right. And so to have that like attempted to be like just stifled and quelched and
Well, you learn a
Yeah.
lot from asking questions, and it's unfortunate I'm really sorry you had that kind of experience with religion. Obviously, lots of people have maybe not that experience, but there's a lot of people who have had even minor experiences with a religious figure that completely turns them off, right, from any kind of religion or spirituality. And I always find that to be really sad because humans are humans and we're kind of horrible sometimes.
Humans are the worst.
Like I said, I'm very devout in my faith, and I'm not perfect by any means. I don't get everything right. But I've had mostly good experiences. But even having had mostly good experiences, I could, and I won't share them because they're personal and I just can't. But I have had experiences too where somebody with some authority did something that just wasn't very nice, wasn't respectful. And you think like, you're supposed to be in this position that should... like being kind should be the easiest of your jobs.
Unconditional?
Right.
Yeah.
And so
shepherding people?
And I remember seeing a comment once from somebody I went to college with who he's just a diehard Catholic. And he was sharing some kind of article where people were going through some of the negative experiences that they'd had with the church. And his comment was kind of like, I don't believe, not that it never happens, but I don't believe it happens to this extent. And I'm not one, I tend not to comment on Facebook, but I thought, my gosh, like I'm very committed to my faith and my church. And I can tell you, I've had those things happen. I've had members of my family have had people say things that I think were completely unwarranted. And, and I just, even within my own circles, so I've had to tell people before, it's a good thing sometimes. I didn't grow up in a family where we went to church solely for the priest. Like, oh, we like him or we don't, so we're going or we're not. That was not the family I grew up in.
Okay.
The church I grew up in, my parents were married in. My brother and sister were both married there. My grandparents would have been married there, but they actually got special permission to be married in a hospital room because my great-grandmother was dying at the time, so she could be there. But it was... this is where literally my great-grandparents' names are on one of the stained glass windows. It's a meaningful place to me, and it means the world to me. That was our home church, and it didn't matter who was in charge for that period of time. Like, that was where we went. And now, granted, nothing like crazy criminal happened to any of us there. That might have changed where we went to church. Right,
hopefully?
exactly.
Yeah,
no.
Good.
But you know what I mean? Like, there have been times where we didn't always love something that a decision that was made or things that people did. But my faith, I always went beyond the person leading the prayers, And so it always makes me sad when people have things like this happen where, of course, it's a turnoff. Of course, you're not going to think much of religion when those things happen. Like, who would? I've just been very fortunate. We've had very good experiences, and music is my thing at church. So I always say, well, there's a saint who said singing is praying twice, and so the music in the church is super important to me. But I'm fully aware, like, I have plenty of friends who had a bad experience, and like they're not going back anytime soon.
Well, I will tell you, I tried again and again and again and again and again. So my husband calls me a shit magnet. So perhaps I just was destined to like bring out these things and expose these things. But because it happened, multiple religions.
Yeah.
And I just, time after time, like bad experience. And I'm just like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I still, live a good moral life. My kids were raised to be amazing now young adults. So I'm just like, I'm comfortable in that. So I don't feel like I'm missing anything, and I'm spiritual in my own ways. I just don't And at this stage in my life, I'm never likely going to adhere to a particular religion. Yeah.
Well, all righty
So.
then. Well, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about escaping this week. Stay with us. PSA time. To learn more about the One Heart campus, where we help people escape crisis mode and achieve self-sustainability, visit oneheartrc.org. We are back on the Escape Pod. I'm Julie here with Charity.
Yes. Hello. That is my name.
Gosh. It's only Wednesday.
It's the clouds. I think that's what it is.
That's what we're blaming it on? I don't know that we ever introduced ourselves at the beginning.
I think we didn't, but that's okay.
People know us by now, right? We're hoping.
I hope so.
Where are you escaping to in the coming days? Something good?
Well, it's going to be like warm and sunny this weekend.
Right?
So new deck furniture. We're going to get the deck ready and like do that. Also, I get to go bike and test out my thumb and see if
your thumb's better.
Works. It's struggling today.
Okay. Well, probably.
But
maybe
it had been
because of the
better,
weather.
so it could be. I mean, anybody who tells you that
yourself.
Arthritic joints do not detect weather, they don't have arthritic joints. It is a thing. It is real. I have one, and it is, yes.
I totally believe that.
Oh, yeah. It's a thing.
There are some theories about pressure systems. Low pressure, not great for you. High pressure, you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
I was a pseudo-meteorologist back in the day.
That's
You remember
right.
that?
I do remember that.
Yeah, a little bit. Did weekend weather for a year. I am escaping to a weekend with 0 on the calendar. Don't know the last time that happened. Don't know when it might happen again.
I don't even know what to say.
I know.
Like,
it's nuts, except for Mother's Day. Woo, woo.
Oh, yeah.
Do you not realize it's Mother's Day?
Well, I don't have a mother, so...
But you are a mother.
Oh, I am a mother, but my kids are whatever. So, I mean, they're busy. They're gone. They're like, out of the house. It's not a whole thing anymore.
I bet they call you.
Oh, they will. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, Alec, he's trying to get ready for graduation.
Yeah.
Like he has a pass.
I think I graduated from college on Mother's Day
really?
weekend. I think so. It was early. Yeah.
Well, he graduates next weekend. Not this weekend, but next weekend. So.
And the gift to my mom was being done paying for college is probably how she viewed it.
Right? Last child done.
Yes.
That'd be great. Yeah. I know I am really, really excited about not having to pay rent and pay for school and all that kind of a thing.
Right.
So that'll be nice.
Well, excellent. Yes, we have plenty to look forward to. Very simple things in life that we like a lot.
We do. And one of the things we're looking forward to is we just had on the heels of Linda's episode, the biggest run of download days that we've ever had.
Yeah.
So like a lot in a very short period of time.
Keep it coming.
So yes. So thank you. We just really, really sincerely appreciate your support. It's starting to get noticed and we're thinking that word is starting to spread. So it's kind of felt like we had a really good start and then it was kind of slow for a long time. And now it feels like it's really starting to pick up and that just... It's so validating. Hopefully it's not an anomaly or an outlier. But, we've been putting our all into it. I mean, Julie, myself, Cara Beth, we're kind of getting to the point where with everything else we have going on with our jobs, like we don't know which way is up much of the time. So whatever you're doing to help us, thank you. Yeah. Please continue that. Rating, reviewing, subscribing, wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really does. You leave us happy reviews, hopefully. And however the algorithms work, it bumps us up so that other people looking into true crime or these types of podcasts can hey, maybe you'll be interested in this. And
find us faster.
Yeah, they'll find us faster and check us out.
And you can help them find us by sharing it. Like it's really easy to share the URL or to do it if you're using an app on your phone, whatever it is.
And I know somebody asked this last week about they didn't have Spotify. For whatever reason, they thought you could only listen to it on Spotify.
Nope, it's on all sorts of them.
You can go to the website, too, and all the episodes are on the website. So you don't even... I mean, you can connect out to any podcast or, music listening platform that you want to, because I think we're on the majority of them, or just find them right there through the website, too.
Yep.
So
Website, escapepod.live. Of course, follow us on our socials. Reach out at justbecause@escapepod.live or share your story of escape with us. Charity escaped the wackadoo experience she had as a kid. So those stories you want to share at escapeartist@escapepod.live.
So if you barely survived a Pentecostal cult, I would love to hear from you.
You can tell her she's not alone. We are closing the hatch on this episode of the Escape Pod. Remember, trauma may be inevitable, but how you grapple with it is optional.
So stay resilient
and keep laughing.